Welcome to another episode of Advertisers Watching Ads, the weekly show where we invite brands to review other brands' ads.
You're going to get people to go in and put themselves out there and say, am I going to be a lover? Am I going to be a hater?
Are you going to feel repulsed by it, or are you going to look at the humor in it and accept it for what it is?
It strikes me as a brand that actually is somewhat beloved, even if you don't like the product.
This week, we have some brilliant guests with us, so I'll let you introduce yourselves.
I'm Adam Conley. I lead North American Human Intelligence for Mars Wrigley.
Hi, my name is Saira Rahman, and I am on the brand side at Paramount Plus, leading brand marketing as well as title marketing, and really excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Colin Chow, Global Managing Partner at 21st Century Brand, and I lead our North American business.
Brilliant. Great to meet you all. So thanks as ever to our partners at Contagious for selecting this week's ads. The winning ad was actually probably the first brand I ever worked on, which is Marmite. So I'm going to play that right now, and then we'll start talking after.
It's a question many expectant parents ask themselves. What are we having? So we used science to find out.
A recent study has shown that babies in the womb may be able to taste what their mothers have eaten via the amniotic fluid.
Which led us to doing our own study.
Madam, it's meant to be 5 grams per slice.
I love Marmite.
Okay, sure. There you go, madam. Sir? It's not for you.
She loves it. So weird.
It's not that weird. I quite like it.
Could be that your partner's genes have affected baby's reaction. Oh. There's baby there. Oh. Looks like baby doesn't like it much.
What? He doesn't like Marmite?
No.
But he could learn to love it, like later on, when he's older.
Oh, look. She's so cute.
It's a lover. Takes after me.
Did you have to say that? Hold on. It's updating. Oh.
So it's a hater?
That doesn't look like a hater to me. Does it to you?
I feel quite emotional.
Oh.
Could you print me off some stills, please?
Yeah.
I think that looked great in the kitchen. Won't they?
Yeah. Or the downstairs toilet.
So on your hands, if you can vote out of 5, and 3, 2, 1. Saira, could you give us a bit of an overview of what you thought was going on?
What I thought was going on was they're introducing Marmite to new moms, new parents at the hospital. And the concept is around you are either born loving it, or you grow into loving it, or you just hate it. From what I've read online also, Marmite has done some studies around genetic expressions. It could be in your genes, and they might be tapping into that. But at the end of the day, it's just babies, youngest consumers. Do they love it? Are they born into it? Do they grow into it? Do they hate it?
It's a very smart and self-aware strategy for a polarizing product. And I think that's why it's been a successful campaign for quite some time. And I think the thing that I like too, it was inspired by relevant new data. The recent research about babies in the womb being able to taste what their mothers had eaten via the amniotic fluid. I thought that was smart because it gives a evergreen nature to the campaign where you can take whatever's happening in culture in the world and then bring that and refresh the campaign over and over again.
Yeah, I was entertained. And that's not often the case when you're talking about advertising. I thought the humor worked. I think they landed that really well to make this actually entertaining content that threaded Marmite into that storytelling. So you talk about humor, you talk about storytelling. I think they did both well to land a story that made sense and integrated the brand in based on that insight. So I'm just like, not always easy, but it felt natural, didn't feel forced. And that's a thumbs up for me.
I did appreciate the humor in it. It was something I noted as a positive. It's a very gentle humor. It made me think of something, the difference between a polarizing product and a polarizing brand. And I think Marmite has a polarizing product, but the way that the brand shows up is actually not polarizing because of the humor. And again, not being in the UK, I'm not as aware, but it strikes me as a brand that actually is somewhat beloved, even if you don't like the product. And that's very different in North America, for example, and probably in other parts of the world where there's more polarizing brands like Tesla, for example, which isn't very polarizing as a product, but as a brand, incredibly polarizing. Disney, incredibly polarizing. Amazon. So it was interesting just thinking about the difference when you have a polarizing product versus brand, and the way that humor can make the brand approachable and warm, even though the product itself can be one that creates very divided reactions.
I feel like if it was a North American audience, they could have done more with the humor. I feel like we have a habit of more directness. So that was a bit softer in the ad. I think that would have been a difference in what I do, keeping the audience in mind.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing to keep going on, actually. So I think we've spoken a bit about on some previous episodes where there's kind of brands that can be brave and they know what they stand for, and that gives them the space to jump in on things. Do you have any thoughts on how brands can cultivate that kind of relationship, whether it's within their marketing team, their partners, their agencies? How are you kind of giving people that space to spot an idea and then activate it?
Knowing yourself, but also knowing what areas you don't want to go into. And some of it is like having trust in the agency, having a really open brief versus a very closed brief. I think that really plays into it. It's hard cultivating that kind of trust. I feel nowadays with brand safety, you have so many guardrails, but in this case, like they've really just, even the babies, I'm sorry, but they looked a bit creepy to me. But I think that's the emotion they wanted to evoke. Like, are you going to feel repulsed by it, or are you going to look at the humor in it and accept it for what it is?
The other thing, just to throw in there as well, is a clear goal of what you're trying to accomplish through the campaign and ad. And I think if you kind of peel back the layer, it's not actually to convince any haters to cross over. They've just accepted that there's going to be people who just don't like the product. But it's really to provoke trial. It's curiosity. For someone like myself, American, not that familiar with the product itself, it made me curious. I want to know which side I stand on. Do I love it? Do I hate it?
Really understanding your consumer and being authentic to the behavior of your consumer, and realizing that you're not actually there for everyone at all times with this type of product, but also understanding human behavior. You're going to get people to go in and put themselves out there and say, am I going to be a lover? Am I going to be a hater? And, having them lean into what you've already put out there and owned authentically is really compelling to that narrative. So I think that that's a nice thread that starts from that, knowing your consumer and being authentic to their experience.
This ad campaign, this concept of love it or hate it for Marmite has been going on for a long time, and they've done like very different creative versions of it. And I almost wonder if, like, for somebody that's seen the concept run for so long, is this passive? Like, does this even break through? I mean, to us, it's new. We're not as used to the brand, but I do wonder, would this break through?
We're in a world of purpose-driven brands, purpose-driven campaigns. Particularly when you're in the industry, you start to even eye roll it yourself, but consumers are certainly doing that too, particularly if it feels forced. On this one, I felt like there was an opportunity to connect to a purpose linked to something in the delivery space. If it was even premature deliveries, something where you were contributing back to that space, I felt like there was an opportunity in an authentic way to make that connection. And then you can get that interesting balance of, like, you have a very comedic delivery, but you actually land in like a purpose that is very much the opposite. And I like that duality. So I was almost hopeful that it was going to land there. I think that that's where I was trying to bring it to myself. So I was a little disappointed that what felt like an opportunity in a world that's constantly trying to connect to purpose and doesn't always land it right, this one felt like it could have.
I do applaud the brand for trying to include some diverse representation in terms of different types of couples in a way that didn't seem too forced. It felt very natural, and I really liked that. But I did notice the healthcare practitioners were not as diverse and leaned into traditional stereotypes, a white male doctor, a female nurse. I think that was a missed opportunity as well to really bring forward and challenge some of our preconceptions of those societal roles, especially for a brand that's trying to be polarizing and provocative. It could have just been one more thing that added a layer of intrigue to that ad.
That's a really good point. If you had to sign this off in its current guise, would you sign off as it is, not sign off, kind of can it, or maybe with a bit of change and go now? Oh, okay. A lot of feedback and changes from this group. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with more ads, and yeah, stay tuned.